The Galactic High Council chamber buzzed with the overconfidence of an empire that had never known defeat. For millennia, the empire had expanded unchecked, bringing system after system under its banner. Resistance, when it came, was brief and ineffectual. Entire species had bowed before the might of the Imperial fleet. Victory wasn't anticipated, it was assumed. Overlord Calyx stood, his emerald scales glinting under the pale chamber lights. We have detected a new species on the outer fringe. Bipedal, limited territory, technologically developing at a modest pace. Their planet is called Earth. A rustle of indifference followed. Another backwater species. Another inevitable assimilation. They have achieved faster-than-light communication, primitive spaceflight, and some orbital defense platforms. They call themselves humans. No records of them in prior cycles. Admiral Threx leaned forward. Any evidence of allied species? None. Isolated. But there is a peculiarity. Calyx tapped his data rod. A survey drone scanned their planetary surface. The data suggests widespread ruins, massive destruction zones, repeated conflict zones covering nearly every continent. A few murmurs followed. Counselor Dravet scoffed. Ruins? That planet's climate could have done that. Or perhaps they are as violent among themselves as most primitives. That only makes them weaker. On the contrary, Calyx replied, it makes them practiced. The damage shows strategic targeting, industrial collapse, rapid rebuilds, cycles of war. Again and again, it is statistically improbable for such a species to survive their own aggression, let alone emerge as a space-faring civilization. Survival doesn't make them powerful, Threx snorted. It makes them lucky. The chamber hummed in agreement. Dravet rose. If they are as fractured and brutal as you suggest, they will crumble the moment a unified force like ours presses on their throat. Shall we move to subjugate? The motion passed unanimously. The Empire dispatched a subjugation envoy, as protocol demanded. A formal document would be presented, offering the humans a chance to surrender peacefully and integrate, or face overwhelming retaliation. The Empire rarely needed to fire a shot. Most species understood the futility. Within 2 cycles, the diplomatic ship Inevitable Ascension arrived in orbit over Earth. The transmission from the humans was brief. They accepted the invitation to negotiations, requesting a meeting at the neutral station of Selim Prime. The Empire granted it, bemused at their eagerness. Weak species often mistook diplomacy for a chance at survival. What the Empire did not expect was what came next. In the following days, fleet analysts reviewed Earth's historical data fragments, most recovered via automated crawler drones sent decades prior. What they uncovered was disturbing. Entire archives of warfare, catastrophic events unlike anything in the known galaxy. Nuclear detonation records, planet-wide wars, detailed stratagems for genocide, AI protocols dedicated to extermination, propaganda machines designed not just to control, but to dehumanize. One young analyst submitted a report. These events are confirmed. Humans have destroyed more of themselves than any known enemy ever could. And they've done it again and again. Not over centuries, over millennia. The file was dismissed. Over-exaggeration, they said. Misinterpretation of primitive history. Calyx issued a final warning before the delegation left for Selim Prime. There is something wrong with this species, he said. They did not simply survive violence. They were forged in it. His words were ignored. On Selim Prime, preparations began for a ceremony, as was custom. A theatrical show of power before a species was folded into the Empire. Grand banners, holograms of previous conquests, symbols of the Empire's long and bloody legacy. The humans arrived without ceremony. No weapons, no armor. Only a delegation of 5, all silent, composed, with sharp eyes that seemed far too calm. They did not bow. They did not react. They sat and waited, saying nothing as the Empire's emissary detailed the expected conditions of surrender. At the end, one human stood. He introduced himself as Elias Voss, a historian. We understand your position, he said. Before we respond, We would like to offer context. The Empire's emissary tilted his head. Context. Voss nodded. You speak of dominance, of conquest, of unity through war. We thought it only fair that you understand how humans view such things. We do not glorify war, but we know it well. He placed a small data sphere on the table. It is our history. You should see it before you decide what you are walking into. The chamber fell quiet. The humans stood, nodded politely, and left. The transmission began. Images flickered into the minds of the assembled delegates, and what they saw would mark the beginning of the Empire's unraveling. The data sphere activated, projecting a chronological archive across the room. No narration, just footage, raw, unflinching, and historical. The delegates expected primitive wars, maybe some tribal skirmishes or colonial battles. What they witnessed instead left even the most callous among them unnerved. Footage of trenches from the First World War, where thousands died for inches of ground, their faces twisted in agony beneath mustard gas. Images of cities reduced to ash by firebombing campaigns during the Second World War. The blinding light of nuclear detonations over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Entire cityscapes consumed in seconds. Civilians evaporated. Shadows burned into walls. A delegate flinched as grainy footage of concentration camps emerged. Emaciated figures, mass graves, the clinical efficiency of industrialized genocide. The humans had filmed everything. They had documented their own darkness with obsessive precision. Another segment revealed a war not between nations, but within them. Civil wars soaked in ideology, brother against brother. Guerrilla warfare in jungles, roadside IEDs in deserts, drone strikes from the sky. And still it continued. Korea, Vietnam, Rwanda, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan. A new war for every generation. Alien diplomats sat in silence, overwhelmed by the scale. The footage wasn't just ancient. It was recent. Their wars didn't stop with progress. They evolved with it. Biological weapons tested on civilian populations. Psychological operations designed to break minds. Simulations of entire enemy cultures designed to be dismantled through information warfare. Then came the doctrines. Cold, clinical language detailing mutually assured destruction. Strategic nuclear deterrence. First strike capabilities. Dead-hand systems designed to launch retaliatory strikes, even if no human remained alive to push the button. Protocols to ensure the planet's annihilation, should annihilation come first. One delegate turned away, trembling. Another muttered a short prayer to his ancestral spirits. When the recording stopped, the room remained quiet. No one moved. The humans re-entered. Calm, measured. Elias Voss once again stepped forward. That was not entertainment, he said. It was not propaganda. It was who we were. Sometimes who we still are. You called us isolated. We were. But not because we lacked ambition. Because we had to learn restraint. He looked across the table. Over thousands of years, we killed billions of our own. Not because we wanted to. Because we refused to stop. Ideology. Resources. Borders. Power. We've torn it all down and built it back, again and again, until we learned the price of war. The Empire's envoy composed himself. You present this as a threat? No, Voss replied. As a warning. You believe strength is domination. We believed that once too. It led us here. The alien representatives hesitated. Counselor Dravet, less shaken than the others, leaned forward. You speak of horrors, but you are alone. Weak. Your kind is not unified. Not truly. Your systems are fractured. Our species is not unified by government, Voss said. It is unified by memory. Every nation, every person grows up surrounded by the remnants of our worst mistakes. Statues, ruins, books, data. We learn early what we are capable of. Yet you still build weapons. Yes, because we remember. He placed a secondary device on the table. This is a summary of our military doctrine. Non-classified. Enough to inform, not enough to threaten. It detailed adaptive response algorithms, real-time threat assessments, and protocols designed to respond with proportional or disproportionate force. cyber warfare capabilities beyond current galactic norms, redundancy layers, underground cities, planetary defense shields still under testing but active in sections. The Empire's representatives glanced at one another. None could say it out loud, but the truth was clear. This species was not behind in technology. It was ahead in ways that mattered, not in raw firepower, but in readiness, in psychology, in intent. Voss continued, "We have no desire to conquer, but if you bring war to Earth, understand this. We will not surrender. We will resist, not to win, to survive. And we have always survived." There was no dramatic flair, no threat in his voice, just fact. Dravet tried to reassert control. "You cannot intimidate the Empire with stories. You are 5 individuals in a borrowed room." Voss looked at him evenly. "You mistake our presence here. We are not here to impress you. We are here to ensure you understand what happens if you proceed. We brought only words. What follows, if you ignore them, will be actions." He gestured to the data sphere. "History has a pattern. Great empires fall when they forget humility, when they think themselves immune to consequence. You believe you are unique. So did we once." No reply came. After a long pause, Voss stood. "Your move, gentlemen." The humans left without further ceremony. In their wake, silence lingered. And fear. The Empire initiated its first strike before the human delegation had even returned to Earth. The plan was simple. Eliminate a mid-tier colony on the planet's edge, send a message of dominance, and cripple their morale. The target was a known human outpost on Ganymede Station 3, believed to be lightly defended and strategically minor. A fleet of 3 cruisers and 2 support vessels arrived in orbit and commenced orbital bombardment. Within 2 minutes, the surface was glassed. For a brief moment, the Empire believed it had achieved the intended effect. No resistance. No defense systems activated. No human fleet responded. Then the reports began to flood in. First, the data feeds across the cruisers were disrupted. Navigational overlays glitched. Internal communications flickered. Command relays to the Empire's central command failed simultaneously. The admiral on the lead cruiser, puzzled, attempted to re-establish neural synchronization with the ship's AI node. Instead, he received a single word burned into his retina display: observed. Secondary systems initiated lockdowns. AI shut themselves down. Security subsystems activated emergency countermeasures without orders. The fleet's own ships began isolating compartments, locking officers in place, freezing their command privileges. Hull sensors detected no incoming fire, but the crews were already panicking. By the time reinforcements were called, 20 minutes had passed. The fleet was not destroyed by weaponry. It was dismantled digitally, psychologically. Later analysis would reveal that the station the Empire had targeted was unmanned. It had been decommissioned 2 years prior. Its infrastructure remained only as bait. While the Empire scrambled to understand what had happened, Earth responded. Kinetic orbital projectiles, rods of tungsten fired at near-relativistic speeds, struck 3 Empire-controlled outposts in the sector. No energy weapons, no explosive signatures. Just sudden, silent annihilation. No defenses intercepted them. They arrived too fast. Each target was obliterated within milliseconds. The Empire had no time to react, only calculate the cost. Within an hour, several forward communication satellites of the Empire went dark. Surveillance logs later showed an unfamiliar stealth object briefly entering proximity before vanishing. Its profile did not match any known ship class. Empire command shifted to emergency footing. Probes were dispatched to locate the human fleet. None were found, because none had been deployed. Humanity had not responded with force projection. They had responded with information dominance and precision. By the second day, encrypted messages began leaking across Empire internal channels. Not intercepted, inserted. Carefully crafted images of Imperial soldiers sobbing in trenches. Simulations of defeat. Fabricated casualty reports with authentic signatures. Panic spread faster than any ship. An admiral on the eastern fringe sent an unencrypted message into deep space. We underestimated them. They do not follow our logic. They do not attack strength. They erase certainty. It was not just military strategy. It was psychological collapse. Empire troops stationed along the frontier reported hallucinations during training simulations. Not errors, implanted triggers. Unknown data embedded in training modules, later traced back to compromised update relays. The simulations weren't merely hacked. They were designed to leave permanent imprints on the minds of soldiers. Dreams, nightmares, doubt. The humans did not strike again immediately. They didn't need to. Every Empire officer began second-guessing commands. Was a next signal genuine or a Trojan? Was the order real or a hallucination? By the end of the first week, 10 fleet operations were aborted mid-execution due to internal breakdowns in trust. The Empire convened an emergency war council. Calix, the same strategist who had first warned the council, now spoke with grim resolve. They have not escalated. They have demonstrated. Dravet, pale and visibly shaken, countered. It's cowardice. Smoke and mirrors. They hide behind machines. They use machines, Calix corrected, like we use claws. Efficiently, without waste. They do not seek battle. They seek understanding. And they believe we have failed to understand. News broke within the Empire's civilian channels that the humans had published all intercepted military data, redacted but authenticated, on open access networks. Alongside it, they shared documentation of their own wartime doctrines. Not as threats, as mirrors. Each section was signed with a simple statement. We do not desire conflict, but we will not avoid it. Empire citizens, long indoctrinated into believing in the Empire's invincibility, now saw another force operating by rules entirely alien to theirs. No banners, no declarations, just action. Cold, effective, and terrifyingly precise. Some on the council urged escalation, planetary sieges, full fleet deployment. But others hesitated. If a single strike had yielded this response, what would full war bring? One general submitted a resignation, citing nightmares of black glass cities and burning skies, visions she could not explain. The Empire had always believed fear was a weapon wielded by the strong. But now they faced an enemy who had mastered fear not by using it, but by surviving it. The humans were not posturing. They were remembering. And the Empire, for the first time in centuries, was beginning to understand the price of provoking a species that had already lived through its own apocalypse. The Empire opened negotiations. It was not framed as surrender. Officially, it was a reassessment of interstellar relations in light of new strategic variables. But everyone involved knew the truth. The Empire had not been defeated in battle. It had been paralyzed before war truly began. The human delegation returned to the negotiation table. Same faces, same quiet demeanor. No threats, no triumph, just presence. Elias Voss spoke once more, this time without preamble. We appreciate your willingness to continue dialogue. The Empire's lead diplomat nodded stiffly. Gone was the arrogance. Gone were the boasts of conquest. What remained was apprehension. We misjudged your civilization, the diplomat admitted. We believe your history made you unstable. Instead, it made you immune. Voss did not correct him. Another counselor, one who had remained silent through previous talks, leaned forward. You did not respond with overwhelming force. You responded with precision. Why? Voss answered without hesitation. Because overwhelming force creates escalation. Escalation leads to total war. And total war is what nearly destroyed us. We fight only when necessary. And when we do so to prevent future war. He paused, then added, It is a lesson we paid for in billions of lives. The council fell silent. Across the Empire, reforms began quietly. Unannounced, recruitment rates dropped. Fleet exercises were postponed. Internal security protocols shifted from offense to defense. Doctrines were rewritten to consider psychological resilience, information warfare, and asymmetric response. The ripple effects were profound. Smaller species once under the Empire's thumb began pushing back. Some invoked human doctrine in their appeals. Others began quoting fragments of human war literature, lines about resistance, survival, sacrifice. Entire systems began requesting neutral diplomacy with Earth. The myth of imperial inevitability had shattered. Inside the Empire's academic institutions, human history became mandatory curriculum, not out of admiration, but necessity. Understanding humans had become a survival strategy. But Earth did not expand. There were no fleets dispatched to occupy, no ultimatums sent to new systems. Their only movement was diplomatic, a steady stream of envoys, peace terms, cultural exchanges. Yet the memory of Ganymede, 3 lingered in every admiral's mind. At the edge of known space, a new kind of treaty was signed. Not a surrender, not an alliance, but a mutual agreement of respect. The language was sparse. One clause simply read, "Both civilizations acknowledge the unacceptable cost of conflict." The signature from Earth bore no official seal. Just 2 words, "Never again." Over time, that phrase began to circulate beyond human circles. Empire commanders used it in training protocols. Civilians whispered it when talk of conquest returned. It became more than a phrase. It became a reminder. The greatest victory was not the destruction of an enemy, but the dismantling of inevitability. Humanity had done what no species in the galaxy had achieved. They had made war undesirable not through morality, but by demonstrating its absolute cost. They had walked through fire, emerged scarred but whole, and held up a mirror for the galaxy to see its reflection. They were not predators. They were survivors. And survival, in its rawest form, was more terrifying than conquest. As the years passed, Earth's influence grew, not through force, but through presence. Other species sought their counsel. Some feared them, others admired them, but no one ignored them. The Empire never attacked again, not because it was defeated, but because in a single move, the humans had done what no armada ever could. They taught an empire that there are wars not worth winning.